Hello, a lovely good afternoon to all our viewers that are joining us across the country, far and beyond, and also welcome to the Real Talk Show. And today we are discussing a critical issue, and this issue is the mental health impact on gender-based violence on women and children. And today we have a very beautiful guest, and this is somebody that you have known, and she has been here on the Real Talk Show before, and we will share her experience as a clinical psychiatrist and a mental health activist. Now, as we get to talk about this important issue, we want to recognize there are 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and this is a global campaign that happens every year from November 25th to December 10th, and the goal is to raise awareness about GBV and support those affected and encourage communities to take action against GBV. And that's why with that build up today, we are going to be talking about mental health impact on GBV on women and children. And of course, don't forget that today we literally had a very great experience from the past weeks. Last week we're talking about PrEP and testing with Malungo Mwanga, and what is a beautiful, beautiful topic. And also today is not an exclusion because we're getting down to mental health impact on GBV on women and children. This has been one of the greatest, topics that we can get to tackle because a lot of people are affected in that manner. And of course, not to forget, you, our viewers, always make our show very interesting. And of course, I'm your host, Faith Malabo. Please do feel free to drop in your comments and contributions. Like I always say, the Real Talk Show is not about a presenter and a host and the guest. It's about the engagement with you guys who are watching us wherever that you're watching us from. Please drop us your comments and contributions, and let's get down to discussion. We are not interviewing nobody, but we're here to educate and just get to know each other's experience. Now, joining me on this very great topic of discussion, I am joined by Namatama M. Luvinda, a clinical psychiatrist and a mental health activist. Hi, Namatama. Okay, I really can't get to that yet. Namatama seems to be stuck somewhere. And also not forgetting my very most wonderful sign language interpreter, Shadrick Chanza. Hi, Shadrick. I know, most of the times people think like you don't talk because you're always on the sign language. Please give me some voice. How are you, Shadrick?
I'm okay, and how are you, Faith?
I'm good, thank you. Exactly. This is what I wanted. At least our viewers now know that, Eh? Well, this is very beautiful. Now we are talking about mental health impacts on GBV on women and children. As we just get way to our guests to come into the show, please to our viewers, do join us into this discussion and tell us what you think about mental health impact on GBV on women and children. And of course, as we are waiting for that, I think most of you would agree with me to say GBV has been a speech, or rather a fight of time and again. It's something that every day and every day and every day we get to talk about, and a lot of people around the world and around the globe are affected by GBV. Of course, some have been able to come out and talk about it, but others have not been able to talk about. And the question for today would be, how best can we get to fight GBV, and how much of impact is it when it comes to our mental health, even as human beings? And basically, maybe I'll start by asking this question to our viewers, and I'll try to answer it in the best way possible that I can. And I just wish Shadra could just come and talk with me at this point. But anyway, I'll try my level best. So we are up with the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence period. And this period, I think we just want to hear people's experiences. We want to know people's testimonies, because a lot of people have been victims of this particular thing, of this particular gender-based violence. And truth be told, the gender-based violence does not get to the absence of mental health, because you know that when you are being abused, you are literally not on the safe space of your mental health. And this has got so much impact on human beings. So whether you have talked about it, whether you have heard about it, this is something that is happening. And you can't avoid it. So now, just getting to that, Shadrick, as we are getting to the countdown of these 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, I think you have heard about it, and even maybe testimonies from people and even from your friends. What do you think about this? What do you think is the greatest way to go about this?
Hi, sorry, I got lost for.
It's okay. Well, welcome back. I was about to get down with Shadrick. I don't know how he was going to do it, but we're going to be talking in sign language. And so thank you so much for coming in, Matama. I just gave a very splendid welcome to you. And I was just saying, we have had you before on this show, and you have been one of the people that has given us a great insight when it comes to, mental health, you being a psychiatrist and a mental health activist. Maybe I allow you to say your welcoming remarks to the viewers.
Oh, welcome everybody. I hope you enjoy the show and I hope that you learn one or two things. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions. Yeah. Thank you, Faith.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and you're welcome. For a minute, I was about to have a heart attack because, trust me, the questions I have, I don't think I was going to answer them because they are only your questions, madam. All right, now let's get down to this already. We have our clock is ticking, and our first question would be: we know that we are on a countdown to the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and in that regard, what does the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence period mean to you as a person, and also as one who has been exposed in this particular aspect?
16 days of activism is a critical time for raising awareness and taking actionable steps towards the prevention of gender based violence. And for me, this is a time to discuss the mental health effects of gender based violence, which are rarely talked about.
Okay, so when you say rarely talked about, and then we know to say GBV, I think it's something that people have been hearing now. Basically, you're talking from the statistics that you have as a person who has been dealing with these issues. What do you think could be the greatest reason why this thing is not being talked about when it's a day-to-day effect on most people?
I think the reason why these things are not talked about, gender based violence and mental health, is because of stigma. When somebody experiences mental health issues, when somebody experiences gender based violence, they are often seen as weak. And so anything that portrays weakness as human beings, we like to run away from that.
That is very true. Now, building from your statement, I just can tell. I think it's very few people. I think we have seen, for some reason, we have seen parents in certain homes. We have seen in relationships, even girlfriend and boyfriend, of people that have been negatively affected with this GBV, and they'll just never talk about it. But they're so comfortable to stay about it. Perhaps, Namatama, let's be open about this. Why do you think people would be being abused but still stick in the abusive environment?
Well, when somebody is in an abusive environment, they are trauma bonded. So, a trauma bond is what in the spiritual context is referred to as a soul tie. So, when somebody is trauma bonded, in as much as they are experiencing the effects of the violence or the abuse that they are experiencing, it's very difficult for them to leave because that that violence, that pain that they experience actually makes them more drawn towards their abuser. It's kind of like an addiction. You know that the drug is bad for you, but then the fluctuations in the chemicals in your brain, dopamine and all that, make you want to stay there longer or to indulge in that drug for longer.
Beautiful. Now, building again from your statement, Namatama, I like when you say it becomes a part of you and you feel like it's normal when it is not, which is going to drive us to the next question. Is there a relationship between GBV and mental health? Because then if we get to differentiate the two, maybe it's going to help us and help somebody out there to realize that Sometimes your mental breakdown could be a cause of your current experience, and this could be in particular GBV experiences. What would you explain about that, Namta?
Okay, so mental health issues, mental health disorders mostly stem from trauma. And gender based violence comes with different forms of trauma. There's the physical trauma, there's the emotional trauma, psychological trauma. And so all those triggers may lead somebody to develop mental health issues such as depression, post traumatic stress disorder. Some people may even develop addiction and even suicidal tendencies.
Now, with somebody who has been these tendencies, the abuser and the victim, the people that find themselves to be the abusers of the other, do you think that happens as a trauma of their past experiences and has probably distorted their mental health, or it's something that somebody just wakes up and decide to be, yo, today I'm going to punch you because you couldn't cook lunch for me? Do you think it's like that? Is it a trauma that somebody gets to grow with and they just get to inflict it on another person for no reason,
So,
and probably they are not even aware of it? Sorry.
mhm. No problem. So behaviors are primarily learned through experience. Not only through experience, but also through the things that we consume. So this is why some parents stop their children from watching violent movies, because from that content they may see violence as a normal response. Some people may be perpetrators of gender based violence simply because they experienced a different form of trauma. For example, somebody may be an abuser, a physical abuser, because they experienced sexual abuse or verbal abuse, and that tends to be an outlet for that pain that they're experiencing deep inside.
Great. Now, probably, like we stated when we just started Namatama to say, GBV and sometimes even mental health is rarely talked about. In as much as we have a number of platforms that people are advocating for, the fight of GBV, fight of mental health, what would be your analytical statement when it comes to people that have availed themselves willingly to admit that this is happening in Zambia, and especially to the girls and the women?
I would
Even
say
the men,
that
I think we shouldn't exclude them.
mhm,
Yeah.
coming out to talk about something so that makes you so vulnerable takes a lot of courage. And there's
Yeah,
always a good reason behind somebody talking about their experience with GBV. When you open up about an
that's
experience
true.
that you've had with gender-based violence or mental health issues, you help others to talk about it as well, and you also help others to heal. So I would say it's very brave of people who actually come out and talk about these things, and especially the men, because men are seen as strong, men are seen as people who can't experience GBV. So when somebody comes out to talk about it, especially as a man, that really entails a
Mm,
lot of bravery.
great. Now, when we talk at the scale of the young ones, the young girls, how many have you had to cancel, and how has been their mental health when it comes to GBV? Is there a particular life experience that you would say you encountered, and how was it getting through a child to that state and just making them feel comfortable and making sure that their mental health is not affected by their GBV experience?
Okay, so unfortunately, my counseling is more centered towards adults. So I
So,
actually haven't counseled any children who have experienced GBV. I have counseled some people who
mm,
experienced abuse as children. And what I can say is that the pain never really goes away. And the longer that a person stays without talking about that trauma, the more that it impacts their mental health. So sometimes it may start with just post-traumatic stress disorder, and then if that is ignored or the person doesn't have the opportunity to get help in adulthood, now they have a low self-esteem, depression. They may even struggle with their identity.
Great. Now, let me get to this next question, Namatama. What are the common forms of GBV that go unnoticed? Like you have said, it could be because of post-traumatic disorder, PTD, but then these probably, there are some people who might be going PTD and they really don't even know where it's coming from, but they are there, exhibiting certain habits and treatments towards their friends or other people. So then how do you get to notice these things? How do you get to know to say, okay, I'm going through this and I should see a person like Namatama for probably assistance or help in that particular situation?
Some of the common forms of GBV that are not talked about are verbal abuse and emotional abuse, especially emotional abuse. So there's a tendency for people in relationships, especially men, to give their partners the silent treatment, and that is emotional abuse of the highest level. When a person is given the silent treatment, it makes them question who they are. It makes them question if there's something wrong with them, if there's something that they've done. And that is very torturous to the victim. And experiencing the silent treatment and other forms of emotional abuse can actually be so severe that the person starts harming themselves and experiencing suicidal thoughts and suicidal tendencies. How do you know that you need help? The moment that you start questioning your worth, the moment that you start questioning your identity, then you know that there is a problem. Then you know that there is some abuse that you are experiencing. Some people, especially women, will get into relationships and all of a sudden they're experiencing depression, they're having anxiety attacks, but then they won't make the connection between the development of the mental health issues and the relationship. And the moment that that woman comes out of that relationship, they start to now realize that the relationship was detrimental to their health. Unfortunately, in most cases, you will find that these women stay and they even go into marriage with this person and they end up losing themselves. And the moment that they come to realize that this person has been emotionally abusing them, this is where we hear cases of women killing their husbands. And you hear that, oh, this lady was such a good person, how could she do such a thing? Oh no, she was demon possessed. But it's actually deeper than we realize, and it's deeper than the recognition that it gets.
I love the points that you have raised, and I think they just get us down to reality. When you say unnoticed things could be the things that you have known about this person, but you choose to overlook them. And this could be because you're so concerned about what society would say, and also sometimes you're also considering the vulnerability of you taking up life without that person. And I think, guys, if you're just watching in, just remember to drop down that comment and tell us what you think. Being in a toxic relationship would lead to GBV, and GBV would definitely break down your mental health, and that is not so cool. So I feel like, in as much as it's hard, is it true that some people are literally scared of being alone to the point where when you feel you are being abused and you still stick around? Is it true like that, Namatama? Or is it because we just decide to say, maybe the Canisia, I might not find another one? Like what really goes in our head? Because I feel like if we can understand that aspect to say, um, what doesn't work out today, I feel a broken relationship is better than a broken marriage, because a broken marriage could lead to, like you have said, you killing your husband, or even sometimes you not just having peace at all. How can we handle that? And I think we've had quite a number of cases in Zambia where a wife is killing the husband, and you go down lane, you discover to say they were probably build-ups, of some behaviors that were not tackled. How do we get to that?
Okay, so in the Zambian context, I would say majority of women are actually afraid to be alone. And I
Why?
would give two reasons for this.
Yeah.
So a human being is born with two basic psychological needs, which is the need for attachment and the need for authenticity. So the need for attachment simply means the human being has a desire to connect with others, and then the need for authenticity is the desire to connect with yourself. Now, in a case where there is conflict between attachment and authenticity, the mind will always choose attachment. And so in childhood, the way that many Zambian parents raise their children, it does they don't really focus on authenticity. A child will be given certain expectations. Don't be a difficult child. If you cry, you are a difficult child. And so many of us will needed to suppress our emotions growing up, and so there was that lack of attachment. And so in adulthood, because we do not attach with ourselves, we constantly feel the need to attach to another person or to attach to something else, and this is also what leads to many people being in addiction. The other reason is the cultural norms. Being
Yeah.
raised as a girl in Zambia or Africa, you are taught to do certain things like spread your bed so that mukakwanise muchikwati, learn how to cook so that you can be a good wife, be quiet so that you can be a submissive wife. Zambian girls are not really taught to love themselves. We are not really taught our value and worth as individuals. When a person um complete university, sometimes even before they complete university, when a woman gets to the age of 23, which is very, very young because the prefrontal cortex is not yet fully developed, what the aunties start to
Mm.
say is, when they're getting married, is there somebody that's going to marry you? And so, even though not everybody may be afraid of being alone, they may be forced to get into toxic relationships just for the sake of being seen as complete or valuable by the family and society.
Wow. I like the statement that you said. Women and the girl child, we are raised to appreciate the other gender more than ourselves when it comes to responsibilities. And I think this is a very huge area of concern because in that manner, it's like most of the girls are now focusing on let me be this for the sake of this one and less of let me be this for me. How then can we break that? Like, how can we break that? I know it's something that has happened from, it has been happening, it's been happening from, our forefathers, and it's just like that. Those certain things are being broken and you can see them basic. I think there's no harm in change is constant, and if we can see that certain things that have been told to us are affecting us, why then can't we change them to the betterment of both parties and both genders? So in that aspect, Namatama, how best do you think, because I feel like the damage must already have been done, if I'm not mistaken. If it hasn't been done, I think there's just a point where you would want to bend certain things. It's okay to bend and be submissive, but not in the absence of your own, of your own will to being you. I don't know how you think about that. What would be your opinion, really?
Okay, yes, the damage has already been done, but nothing is impossible with God. So
Yeah.
we first
I
of
like
all
it
need
when you. I'm going to name you my boo on this show now, Atama. My boo.
okay.
Yes.
So, in order to change a system, we need to first tackle the belief systems. What makes a person behave the way they behave is primarily their belief system. So, because women have been taught that without a man they are not valuable, this is what makes them do all these things that are detrimental to their physical and mental health. So, if women can be educated and we actually take the time to change their mindsets towards self-worth, towards value, I think many women would go the other direction. I think we are beginning to see how the Gen Zs, the stubborn generation, as we call
Yeah.
them, are opting not to get married. for the sake of being independent and being themselves. In as much as this is seen as bad, they're challenging things, I believe that that's a good step towards the right direction, because if they choose to get married at the age of 40 when they are ready, I think that's better than what has been done in the past, where people are getting married at the age of 21 just to fit into society. And then now we need to take preventative measures towards these things. We still have those traditional aunties that are poisoning the girl child with these norms and beliefs. So if we can get into the education system, because many girls spend most of their time at school, if teachers can now start to teach these girls their worth without bringing in the aspect of marriage and relationships, if they teach them their worth, that they are worthy of love, they are worthy of affection without the man, I think this can help the next generations to live a life that prioritizes their own health.
Great, that is great. Now, I'm going to leave this question as I get down to read the comments and just follow on what our viewers are saying, Namatama. Now, I don't want us to be a little bit biased today, but I just want to see if we can also incorporate with the males, because truth be
Mhm.
told, males are equally being violated. Truth be told. And it's so funny that when you have such a topic and I'll just get in my inbox and I'll be like, guys, don't you think that we also get abused? And it's true. I think you can also agree with me. So the question I'm going to leave you with as we get down to read our comments for the day are, which age band is GBV most common with, and what are the common causes? And I want, as we talk about the age, which would also incorporate the male, and also dig down and see how also the other gender has been affected as well. So we can get down and just see our comments as we um, think about that question. Mutokwa Malambo Hills, my namesake. Watching from Mongo, interesting topic. Thank you so much, Mutokwa. How I hope that you can also tell us your opinion on what you think about this particular issue. John Kakandelwa says healing from mental health is very difficult, especially if you don't come out. I'm actually a victim of trauma and depression, but I got help when I opened up to close friends. Great. That was a very great step, John. And please, if you are watching and you are reading these comments, John went through it and you can go through it. All that you want to do is open up and talk to someone. And I think opening up and talking to someone is a first step to healing. Don't you think so, Namatama?
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Okay, this one is Hajambwe Himamba. This is a pure Tonga Boo. How could men and boys be included in such important conversations? Mr. Hajambwa, please. I was just talking about it. Have you seen Amatama what I was talking about? We
Yes,
are going to
yes,
talk about it, and I'm sure next time, TYP director of this program, please take note. Next time, let's talk about the guys, but we are trying our very best to incorporate them in this discussion because you are actually not an exception with this particular topic. Namuyaba Himamba. Great topic indeed. What strategies? This should be a question for you, Namatama, because me, I'm not a cousin. So this one is said, great topic indeed. What strategies and interventions can be implemented to effectively prevent gender-based violence and support the mental health of women and girls at risk? Great question. What strategies and interventions could be made? I think there are quite a number, and one of them is having an open space for counseling places. And I think counseling is in almost every private government hospital, if I'm not mistaken. I beg to be corrected. Open spaces for counseling have been provided by government. So if you feel you're going through a situation, you can just go ahead and visit that hospital and talk to a counselor. If not, you have Namatama on TYP. Reach us in our inbox and we'll direct you to the right spaces where you can get this kind of help. So trust me, the Real Talk Show doesn't only come on Friday. I feel like even after Friday, like any other day, you have an issue that concerns what we talk about or what we are about as TYB. I think we are a space that listens and would always provide solution whenever you have a problem. So if you feel like you need to talk to someone and you can't get a hold of them because you are limited to reaching them, you can always give us a text message in our inbox. And I think there should be a website or a way to just reach us on our Facebook platform, get in our inbox, text us, and then pick it up from there. We'll connect you to people that can help. Who knows? Even Namatama, probably when this show is done, tell us where we can find you so that people who are listening to you can also know that I saw Namatama on that show and I can reach out. So thank you so much for those great contributions, guys. And also feel free to be dropping down all those comments. We still have a few minutes, so don't go with your thought for today. Drop it down in the comment section and we read it. You never know, your comment can change your life. Namatama, back to you.
Yes, which question
I
should I
asked
respond to first?
I think let's start with a question that was asked, strategies and preventions on how to tackle these issues with the risk of affecting young girls and women. That question. What are some of
Mhm.
the strategies?
Okay, so some of the strategies that we can employ towards preventing GBV towards girls and young women. First of all, sensitization of the topic. The more that we talk about this, the more that people will be aware about this abuse, because some people don't believe that it is GBV.
Yeah.
Another thing is on the education aspect. We need children to start understanding these things from a young age. When we were growing up, GBV was something that was a taboo topic. You couldn't really talk about being abused, as a child, and even as an adult. These were
Yeah.
things that were not often talked about, and I think it still stands as a taboo topic to discuss. So, in terms of protecting the girl child and protecting women, we need to take action towards the perpetrators of GBV. And I think actually publicizing a little bit on what actions have been taken towards a perpetrator, this person was imprisoned, that would also spark something in people's minds that you can actually report GBV and something can actually be done about it. Currently, people are afraid to talk about it because they don't believe that the police are going to take them seriously. But if you go to victim
Exactly.
support, they will take action. Another thing from the preventative angle is these perpetrators also need help with their mental health. Like we discussed earlier, a perpetrator of GBV will
Okay. Shadrach, you're there? All right. So just in a few minutes, I
Yes,
think.
of course.
Great. This is where you drop your hands and use your mouth, Shadrach. Let's talk about. We had a comment from one of you, and somebody said, "Let's incorporate the men as well in such topics." Now, you as a man, and also having to mingle, how could men and boys be included in such important topics? What would be your thought as a man and standing for the young men that are coming up? What would be your space of thought in this?
Okay, one thing what happened in society that us men they don't believe to open up. So you find that me as a man, I'm going through something. So if I say like I have pressure, I have depression, I can't cry. If someone says me like, "Mama somebody," like, even if I'm dating, then a girl disappoints me. Then I start to be complaining about going through having pressure. Then my friend will say, "You, as a man, you are crying for a girl. No, you have to be strong." You understand like that? Yeah.
Nde
So the
problem
thing
ya men
also
them
another
shut.
thing,
Mm,
another
sorry.
another component is like we need to be included when it comes to awareness. you'll find that nowadays it's focusing on women, girls. But how about a man? How about a boy? Yeah, so they need to understand. Okay, as a man, you have to take care. You have to report when you are facing these challenges. Maybe you are going through GBV. You have to report. These are the steps you have to take for you to report. If they include boys and men, I think it will be easy also to protect the coming generation so that they know where to report and how they can protect themselves from GBV.
Great. Now, in as much as maybe the women and the girls are mostly hate because we make too much noise. Like we just call for our attention. You know what I mean? You are going through something and you are going through a situation and you just want to be heard. I feel like we literally break off our shell because we want to be heard. So now I feel like to some extent, I know that there have been a number of advocacy on girls and women and less of the men. But have you ever asked yourselves as men to say, what step have you taken? Because I bend to be corrected, but there is a platform for men to report these cases. Rebuke me, Shadrach, if I've lied. There are spaces for men to actually get to these places, not so.
But to believe, faith. Even myself, if I'm going through it,
Mm.
I and I
Be
go to
real, my
G,
brother.
I report to, let's say,
Mm.
to police station. I will be like, "Umwana kashenga kuma." Like, you understand? A lady beats you. You have to be strong, and even you're even proud to report like that. The society will start talking like that, but because of that, you will feel like, how am I going to be looked at if I report this case to the police? Even some officers, they will start looking you. Why are you reporting this case? Can't you solve this case at all? You understand? So as a man, we don't have a main platform where we can report and being heard. So as a result, you would start to hold that thing, and the result you have the depression and mental health will comes in.
Okay, Namatama, thank you. Welcome back. So, before I get you down to your question, I was just talking with Shadrach because I think I had like two or three comments that were talking about incorporating men in GBV because they are also victims. And I just want you to give us a very analytical statement based on the people and your experience in that field of how men come up. Do you agree with me, Namatama? This one is just a yes or a no. Do you agree with me that men really don't fight to be heard? Yes or no?
Well, no.
Do they fight to be heard?
No, I don't think they do. I don't think they fight hard enough to be heard.
Do women fight to be heard?
Yes, we do.
That's what I wanted. Now, to break that, Shadrach, I feel like, even to the space of the people that are listening to me right now, to be honest, it is true that men are going through this thing every single day. We have heard cases, and unfortunately, some men have even gotten to lose their lives because of this particular thing where they're being abused by a woman. So we are also culprits. But in that space, I feel like men, I'm not a man, but the energy that we women have put to be heard can never compare to the energy that a man has put in to be heard. So let's fight hard. We are going through this situation. Let's go to the right places and be heard. And also society should break the notion and the belief of Mamona Samadila. Guys, if there are people who are even more emotional, they are men. Men are weak compared to women. Women are stronger. Trust me when it comes to emotions. So let's not put these men in a corner or in a very confined vacuum and make them feel they got it all. They are emotional beings. So let's not be so judgmental. Let's be open up. Let's be open enough to, when a man comes to you and they need help, let's let them be heard. Let's not men die of depression. I think that's why I'm a fast land. So let's go come. Now, Matama, let me drop it to you. I'm getting emotional on this show.
Yes, men definitely are emotional beings. They often say no, women are emotional because women cry easily and we easily express sadness, but anger is an emotion too. Many men are angry,
Yeah.
and this is why many men are aggressive. Anger is usually sadness that has been suppressed and compressed, and it comes out, more conveniently, because sadness represents vulnerability, but anger represents control, and men always want to be in control. So if they're to choose between
Control.
sadness and anger, they will choose anger all the time.
Uh, I think we need a topic for this. Director and producer request to have this again. We have a few minutes to go, probably like 15 or less than 20 minutes to go, Namatama. And probably in this space, allow me to just get down with three questions before we get to conclude our show. And I hope that our viewers, they are following. And thank you so much for comments that are coming in. I'm being reminded that we need to wind up. Allow me to just ask one question. What policy changes or reforms can government implement to address GBV related mental health issues? Namatama, to address this, what policies? You can answer both on government, society, and individuals as well.
Okay, so on the aspect of government, I think they need to incorporate emotional abuse as a crime just as much as physical abuse is a crime. Verbal abuse also is something that has a really profound effect on people's mental health. So I think those things need to be taken more seriously and written down on paper, and they also need to tell us, they need to inform the public that if somebody abuses you emotionally, you can actually report to here and there. And then as a society, we need to embrace these conversations. We need to have them more often. We need to get rid of the notion that experiencing GBV is funny, or it indicates that you are weak. We need to actually acknowledge the fact that coming out and speaking up about gender based violence is actually a sign of strength.
Please choose strength over weakness. That is the word. The last question for you, Namatama. How can we ensure that GBV support services are accessible and inclusive for all survivors, and these including people with disabilities? Now, this should be looked at in the angles of girls, boys, men, and women.
Mhm. Okay, so in terms of accessibility, well, like you mentioned earlier, we have these facilities, or on paper, we have these facilities in every single clinic. It would be helpful for us to have these facilities even in universities and places
Yeah.
where many people are found. And it would be very helpful if we if the government puts stricter measures on counselors who breach confidentiality. A lot of people will not report GBV because they are afraid that their story will go out. Okay, then we also need the police to take these issues more seriously, especially when it comes to men. Like Shadrach mentioned, if he as a man went to the police station and said that a woman beat him up, they would ridicule him. So people don't talk about these things often. And then something that we haven't talked about is sexual abuse, right? Sexual abuse is something that's very difficult to report. If you go and report that you have been sexually abused, the questions that you are going to be asked: were you drunk? Were you wearing a short skirt? Which actually deter people from seeking help. We need people
Yeah.
to understand that sex without consent is rape. There are cases where women are raped by their husbands, women are raped by their boyfriends, but they can't come up and say, "Oh, I was raped by my boyfriend," because they're like, "Oh, but you were sleeping in the same bed." We need to educate people more on these issues, and especially law enforcement. I think that's where most of the stigma and negligence comes from.
Well, thank you so much for that insight, Namatama. We really appreciate having you on this show today. We are always delighted with your knowledge and teachings. And trust me, one or two people have gotten your statements today, and I'm sure they have learned something from it. I really appreciate you. In 15 seconds, what would be your last words for today's show and your conclusion to the words that you have for somebody out there?
Okay, my boots on the beat. The Bible tells
Yes,
us to
please.
be strong. The Bible tells us to be strong and courageous, right? It does not say
Mm.
act strong. The way most people will pretend to be strong, but they're actually not strong in the moment. So when you feel weak, draw your strength from Christ and do what it is that you know is the right thing to do for yourself and the next person in that moment.
Which Bibles could you go to?
I just read it at home and I go to church.
Great. Thank you so much for that great piece of advice. I think it's really be appreciated. And I take it to Shadrach. Let me not leave you out. Your last words in the best way possible, you know how to.
Report. Don't feel like you're a man or you're a boy, you will be judged. If you report, you will open the door to other people, or a man or a boy to report also. You start with me to report, you start with you to report. Don't be deceived that a man don't cry.
I needed to hear that one. I like that one. Thank you so much, Namatama. Thank you so much, Shadrach. And stealing from Shadrach and Namatama's words, please. The change that you want to see begins with you. Don't say, I can't report because I am going to be judged, I'm going to be criticized. You never know, you might open another door for another person to just open up. And of course, if you're a victim of GBV and going through mental health and you know that you are not okay, please open up and be at a place that you're going to get your help. I don't know. Matama, I said, tell us where you are found so that somebody can come to you, but you didn't want to tell us. Do you want to tell
I
us
just
now?
said you would ask at the end. Okay, you can find me on
Where can we find
Facebook.
you?
You can find me on my Facebook page, Namatama Luvinda, the mental health activist. So you can send me a message there and then we proceed with the conversation.
Great. So let's take that step of change, guys. And trust me, what you're going through today, you're not the first one and you're not going to be the last one. Somebody has been there and somebody's going to be there, and you could be an instrument of change to another person. So be the change that you want to see. Let's open up and let's fight GBV together, whether you're a boy, you're a girl, you're a woman, you're a man. Once you are affected, mental health is for everyone. It doesn't sell it. So let's be open enough. Thank you so much for the entire production crew of TYP, The Real Talk. We really appreciate. And of course, I've been your host, Faith Malambo, joined by Namatama and Shadrach. Until next week, Friday, same time, 2 p.m., right here. Bye bye and one love.